Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a brilliant, totally imaginary travelogue that perfectly distills Japan's deep emotional and cultural diversity. It's a thought experiment, really, but honestly, it paints a much more vivid picture of the country than 1,000 traditional guidebooks ever could. So, think about this for a second. What actually happens when you mix American comedians, a Japanese tidying expert, and a completely unscripted road trip? Imagine, if you will, the absurd but profoundly revealing mix of Conan O'Brien's anxious humor, Jack Black's pure dramatic intensity, the legendary Japanese physical comedian Ken Shimura, and the calm, centering presence of Marie Kondo. What would they see? And more importantly, what would they feel? Okay, here's our itinerary for today. 1. Kyoto's quiet restraint. 2. Osaka's emotional chaos. 3. Structured joy and release. 4. The forgotten countryside. 5. Hokkaido's frozen honesty. And finally, 6. The human side. This isn't just a map, it's practically a roadmap for understanding the soul of Japan. We're going to move from restraint to release, all the way to raw survival.
Let's start with Section 1, Kyoto's quiet restraint. Day 8, the city of hidden rules. We're picking up in week 2 of this trip, where the group arrives in a city that feels like it quietly carries memory everywhere it goes. You know, Tokyo was all about speed and systems, but Kyoto? It's something else entirely.
Just picture this sensory atmosphere here. When they walk into the bamboo forest in Arashiyama, the stalks don't just rustle, they literally whisper. The air smells like wet earth, rain lingering in the leaves, the earthy scent of matcha, warm paper, and incense drifting from old temples. In Kyoto, natural sounds and smells aren't just background noise, right? They are intentionally treated as a core part of the emotional atmosphere. It's an environment that's practically engineered to make you introspective. And Marie Kondo hits the nail on the head here. She profoundly observes, in Japan, beauty is often found through restraint and repetition. But of course, because we have a chaotic travel group, that deep philosophy gets immediately contrasted with Ken Shimura literally eating a tiny decorative leaf off his dinner plate and proudly declaring, "No wasted beauty." It's just a perfect example of how this trip balances deep, quiet philosophy with absolute physical comedy. That whole leaf-eating incident, that happens during a kaiseki meal. Kaiseki is this traditional multi-course dinner philosophy that emphasizes seasonality, balance, and progression. In Kyoto, they turn dinner into a literal philosophy. As Tina Fey notes in the story, they transform anxiety into elegance. Every single tiny detail matters. And tracking our geographical progress here is fascinating because it perfectly mirrors the emotional shifts we're about to experience. From the careful restraint of Kyoto, we are about to dive headfirst into the total release of Osaka. Which brings us to Section 2. Osaka's emotional chaos. Day 9, the city that says what Tokyo is thinking. Let me tell you, the tonal whiplash of arriving in Osaka is just staggering. The city hits you immediately with giant moving crab signs, shouting street vendors, and just neon absolutely everywhere. The crucial contrast is this. Tokyo and Kyoto, that's where Japan works and thinks, elegantly suppressing emotion. But Osaka is where Japan relaxes and speaks. It throws emotion directly at your face. It's a place that instantly rewards bad behavior and public laughter. Notice the fascinating sensory shift here too. The unrestrained energy of Osaka smells like sizzling takoyaki batter, frying oil, sweet sauce, and cigarette smoke floating in the humid air. It acts almost like an edible weather system. It's so intense and so welcoming that Jack Black immediately spreads his arms wide and shouts, "I have found my people." Because of its history as a merchant city, Osaka actually rewarded openness, negotiation, and performance. And that history directly inspired Manzai, which is a fast-paced style of comedy featuring these back-and-forth routines between a fool and a straight man. It is energetic, it's physical, and it's perfectly embodied by Ken Shimura, who spends his time in Osaka playfully harassing strangers who happily play right along with him. All right, moving on to Section 3, Structured Joy and Release. Day 10, the Kingdom of Controlled Chaos. Day 10 brings the group to Universal Studios Japan. And the train ride there is fascinating all on its own because everyone, even the adults, commits fully to the shared joy of the theme park. We're talking matching outfits and glowing headbands worn with complete sincerity. So, why is this important? Well, in a highly disciplined society, theme parks aren't just about magic or rides. They act as culturally sanctioned spaces for emotional freedom. It's a structured release zone. The rules of daily social restraint are temporarily lifted, and people are given full permission to just feel openly.
Of course, the rides themselves are wild, focusing heavily on intense pacing and total immersion. Conan O'Brien's reaction to the roller coaster is pure gold. He says, "I briefly met God, and he was also confused." It perfectly highlights the overwhelming, beautifully coordinated spectacle of Japanese entertainment. The energy completely shifts again in Section 4, the Forgotten Countryside. Day 11, the countryside that Japan left behind. By day 11, all that neon is replaced by overgrown gardens, empty train platforms, and low gray clouds. We're transitioning right out of chaos and directly into deep nostalgia. They stumble upon a dagashi, an old nostalgic sweet shop that physically preserves the memory of another decade, with tiny candies and traditional snacks. Jack Black goes on this whimsical candy haul, buying mystery gum and toy whistles, while Ken Shimura performs kendama tricks for the local kids. And by doing that, they are literally connecting rural Japan back to its own joyful memories. As they pass these empty train stations and abandoned schools, the group realizes something really profound. Think about it. In America, abandoned towns often feel kind of angry or violent. But in Japan, places are abandoned politely. The culture respectfully preserves memory, leaving objects like tiny shoes in an empty school hallway to carry the emotional weight of what used to be there. Next up, the journey heads far north for Section 5, Hokkaido's Frozen Honesty. Days 12 to 14, the night Japan disappeared into snow. Over these days, they enter an environment that feels spacious, unfinished, and insulated by seemingly endless snow. The atmosphere just completely changes genres again. The senses up here, they are all about survival. The intense, comforting smells of heavy miso ramen broth, garlic, grilled seafood, ocean salt mixed with diesel fuel down at the fishing ports, and cedar smoke from fireplaces. These aren't just local flavors. They show a culture that has had to negotiate a harsh coexistence with severe winter weather. And the cold water of Hokkaido creates incredibly resilient, intensely alive seafood. When Jack Black tastes the local sea urchin, he delivers this amazingly dramatic reaction. "I just tasted the Pacific Ocean achieving enlightenment." It's hilarious for sure, but it also speaks to the brutally honest, life-affirming quality of the environment up there. And that brings us to the climax of our explainer, Section 6, the human side, a country quietly carrying memory. Looking back at the whole trip, Conan comes to an ultimate realization. The West so often stereotypes Japan as this perfectly futuristic, robotic society, but in reality, it is deeply, beautifully human. In America, emotions tend to explode outward. But in Japan, look at where the culture actually settles its emotions. They are tucked away into intentional rituals, seasonal food, gentle politeness, quiet train rides, synchronized festivals, soaking in hot onsen baths, and moments of shared silence. It's an entire method of quietly settling feelings into everyday structural comforts. And that is absolutely the biggest takeaway here. Japan isn't just a place of neon and bullet trains. It is a country quietly carrying memory, settling its profound emotions into small moments. Japan doesn't shout its meaning at you. It waits patiently until you are quiet enough to notice it. So I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder today. Looking at how an entire culture structures its joy, its restraint, and its memory, how do you hide or reveal your own emotions in your daily life? What are your structured release zones? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating journey with me today. Keep learning, keep reflecting, and I'll see you next time.